Hello, my name is Edward Sonnino. I'm running for mayor of New York City in November of this year, 2025. And I'm running as an independent write-in candidate. And I hope you'll take the time to listen to my platform. So, the title of my platform introduction is The Transformative Mayoral Platform New York City Desperately Needs. My name is Edward Sonnino, and I'm running for mayor of New York City as an independent because the Democrats and the Republicans don't have any effective, sustainable solutions for our city's many problems. New York City's fundamental problem is a low average level of education. Why? Because New York's poverty, low incomes, and crime are all due to low educational levels. What's the cause? All too many New York City public schools are very mediocre with very deficient curriculums. Therefore, the only sustainable solution for New York is greatly improved public schools run as the best private schools, and of crucial importance with enlightened curriculums, including 4-year high school courses on economics and investing and on psychology, accompanied by group therapy and good parenting workshops. Only that will lead to a high average educational level, which is absolutely necessary to end poverty and low incomes. That's the only way to end food and housing affordability problems. Socialistic policies perpetuate poverty. The last thing New York City needs is Zohran Mamdani's demagogic socialist policies to deal with food and housing affordability. That would turn New York City into a version of the Soviet Union and Cuba, with miserable city-run grocery stores, rent controls which dry up rentals, and more ugly, alienating NYCHA public housing. There are better, sustainable, short-term solutions. Voters must understand that you cannot have an economically prosperous city without wealthy businesses and citizens, because they generate many jobs and income and sales tax revenues, directly and indirectly. High taxes are counterproductive by chasing the wealthy away, leaving the city with only the poor, high unemployment, and low tax revenues. So, dear New Yorkers, why am I running for mayor of New York City? Long ago, when I was 5 years old, my father would drive my mother and me to Connecticut on weekends from the Upper East Side of Manhattan, going through Harlem. I found the ghetto depressing, with its poverty, run-down apartment buildings, and sidewalks with no flower beds. It was very disturbing to me. I remember telling my parents that one day I would transform the ghetto into a beautiful neighborhood with no poverty. That idea never left me. I never went into politics, though when I was 34, with a BA in French literature, 2 law degrees, and being a self-taught economist and portfolio manager, writing articles on mainstream economic theories, which I found logically flawed and contradicted by statistical history, one influential intellectual connected with the Wall Street Journal and the Republican Party, encouraged me to do so after reading a few articles of mine and meeting me. I responded that I could not yet run for office because I didn't have enough knowledge and would not be able to come up with effective policies of my own. Many years later, in 2021, I felt I finally had the knowledge and insights to devise a truly transformative platform for New York City, which would eliminate poverty, lead to great social and economic prosperity, and greatly beautify the entire city, including having each block in every neighborhood with beautiful pavements, not with concrete slabs, and flower beds. I set up a campaign website for New York City Mayor, publicizing my platform in writing and with personal videos. It is still online and represents most of my current views. You can find it on my YouTube site at youtube.com/@Edward Sonnino, spelled EdwardSonnino. Also, directly at www.youtube.com/@Edward www.mayored2021nyc.com, and on my LinkedIn site, www.linkedin.com/in/Edward Sonnino 3660 3038. Now it's 2025, and I'm running for New York City Mayor in the November election. Here is my introductory campaign letter, which will be followed by campaign platform details in writing and in personal videos. I hope you'll be interested in my candidacy and be persuaded to vote for me in the coming election. Remember, I'm an independent, write-in candidate. My name will not be listed on the ballot along with the other candidates. So if you vote for me, you will have to write my name in the space provided for write-in candidates, usually on the top right side of the ballot. A write-in candidate can win the election if the platform is considered truly exceptional, the candidate inspires confidence, and the word gets around. As Mayor of New York, my absolute priority will be to greatly upgrade our public schools, having them all run as the best private schools with strict discipline, school uniforms, and lots of homework study hall, accompanied by an enlightened curriculum replacing the terribly inadequate curriculum we've had for decades, which is largely to blame for our low average level of education, widespread poverty, low incomes, housing and food affordability problems, low upward mobility, illegal discriminations, crime, addiction, psychological problems, slow economic growth, budget deficits, and high taxes. We absolutely need educational parity at a high level, which requires all our public schools to be truly excellent. There will be no more education gap if I'm mayor. With every New Yorker truly well educated, there will be no racism or other legal discriminations and real equal opportunity. There will still be specialized high schools focusing on the sciences with their SAT admissions tests. But the non-specialized public schools with no admission tests will be just as excellent, focused on culture and business. The crucially important enlightened public high school curriculum, which will include 4-year courses on economics and investing, on psychology accompanied by group therapy and good parenting workshops, on ethics and empathy, on logic and critical thinking, on 20th century history in great detail, on history of art, architecture, and design, on history of music, on the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, accompanied by the world history of human rights violations, on comparative religion, analyzing the text of the holy books, and on introductory law, including constitutional law. This enlightened high school curriculum is detailed in an article following this introduction and should be read carefully. As a volunteer around 2004, teaching economics and investing to New York City public high school seniors, I saw what the big problems were: lax discipline, little or no homework, and a deficient curriculum. I could not believe that not one of my senior students in 5 different classes had learned how to use fractions and percentages. And they had very little general knowledge in culture. They had learned practically nothing in all their years in public school. No wonder we have many poor citizens in New York City. A truly excellent high school education provides an indispensable base for upward economic and social mobility, and for lifelong learning, which is increasingly important as technology advances and eliminates many traditional jobs. It empowers all students by making them understand how the world really works, clearly see the difference between unqualified and truly qualified political candidates, and not be hoodwinked by superficial, ignorant, and demagogic politicians. Socialistic measures proposed by Zohran Mamdani include creating a chain of city-run grocery stores. That's laughable. It sounds like the Soviet Union and Cuba. Unsustainably increasing public housing, imposing rent controls, which causes housing shortages, doubling the minimum wage, that raises costs and prices while reducing employment, and hiking taxes on wealthy individuals and businesses, pushing them to leave New York City, leading to a shrinking tax base, less investment, less high-end services and consumption, less tourism, and less employment. Those socialistic measures would increase the city's indebtedness, perpetuate poverty and low incomes, and cause a downward spiraling economy. Mamdani is proposing a socialist paradise for New York City. Doesn't he know that socialism destroyed Russia and the Soviet Union? That immigrants to the United States never came for socialism? Voters who fall for socialist politicians and demagoguery haven't studied history or economics. Democracies die when their citizens are ignorant of history and economics and fall for demagogues. Our democratic socialist candidates are ignorant of economics and they're superficial thinkers. They don't realize that government-run businesses are typically expensive failures which need to be funded by high taxes and ruin private sector businesses they compete with, leading to less private sector employment and lower tax revenues. They don't realize that local handouts attract more low-income residents from other parts of the country, causing rising social expenditures and a smaller tax base, thereby requiring ever higher taxes and resulting in an unending downward economic and social spiral. The only solutions socialists and communists can think of are handouts, subsidies, price controls, and high taxes, never real solutions that address the fundamental problem, that is, a low average level of education. Bernie Sanders was an avowed communist in his youth before turning into a socialist. He should explain why he didn't emigrate to the Soviet Union. To promote socialism, Sanders repeatedly makes false parallels between Denmark and low-income areas of the United States. Denmark has a very homogeneous citizenry with a much higher level of education, allowing it to afford more government safety nets, which are generally well-run, much better run than ours. What works for Denmark does not work for the United States. Socialists are so intellectually superficial and narrow-minded that they never think of how to remove the causes of poverty. They don't prioritize greatly improving our public schools. They wouldn't even know how. They only think of how to penalize the private sector and how to deal with perpetual increasing poverty through handouts. Regarding our affordable housing problem, the only sustainable solution, apart from much higher personal incomes, which could be obtained only through a truly excellent education provided by high-quality public schools, is to develop lower-cost commuter communities in rural New York State exurbs served by high-speed rail. That takes time, but the solution is sustainable, whereas increased subsidized city housing is not sustainable, requiring much higher taxes, being much more expensive, apart from being much less attractive. New York City has not planned ahead for decades. It must change its ways. Given the cuts in federal assistance for Medicare and Medicaid, for public education, for public radio and TV, which are cultural necessities, and for food stamps, a big public housing program is simply out of the question, since New York City will now have to fund what the federal government no longer does. Healthcare is the clear priority. Healthcare for middle income and poor New York City residents. As for New York, and of course, greatly improving the public schools, the number one priority. As for New York City's welfare system, it is shameful, a complete failure, with recipients shuttled from one motel or mass dormitory to another, providing no stability for adults and children while costing a fortune. It needs to be completely reformed. Children need stability in housing and schooling, and the adults need to be closely followed and provided with socially productive city jobs when they can't find employment in the private sector. The solution is creating dignified, attractive, safe, well-run, welfare campuses with on-site medical clinics and all-day schools providing an excellent education, daycare, and sports facilities. Welfare housing and homeless shelters should not be located in established residential neighborhoods, as they would unfairly reduce real estate values and consequently the real estate taxes which the city needs. Our prison system also needs to be deeply reformed, as it does nothing to rehabilitate. In fact, our recidivism rate is very high. Rikers Island is a monumental disgrace. Our prisons should be run like strict boarding schools with the job of fully rehabilitating inmates educationally and psychologically. That's not only the moral, humane thing to do, it also makes economic sense. If I'm mayor, we will achieve a zero recidivism rate. Given that tourism is one of New York's main revenue and employment producers, emphasis will be placed on greatly increasing New York's attractiveness as a tourist destination. Beautifying New York City is the best strategy for greatly increasing tourism and for increasing employment, profits, and wages, as well as for making the city much more pleasant to live in and work in. Beautification will involve making all sidewalks citywide in every single neighborhood very attractive, with quality pavements, not the ugly cement slabs, with quality lighting, fountains, trees, and flower beds. It will also involve making all subway stations very stylish. Such a vast citywide beautification project will create thousands of jobs and reduce unemployment to practically zero. And it will be one of the best investments the city can make, generating increased income year by year for everyone, directly and indirectly, as business booms. Reducing street noise and pollution by incentivizing electric vehicles, including trucks and buses, will make an enormous positive difference. Multiplying beautifully landscaped public swimming pools in all parks, adding attractive floating swimming pool establishments on the Hudson and East Rivers, similar to the ones in Paris, France, and turning the Central Park Reservoir into a swimming, sailing, and rowing oasis with multiple stylish beach establishments and cafes will not only attract many more summer tourists, it will make summers in New York much more enjoyable for all its residents. The establishment of many well-run restaurants and cafes with different price points will be promoted for all our parks. They will increase enjoyment of the parks as well as result in increased safety. Apart from dramatically increasing the quality of education provided by our public schools to make them the best in the world, which will lead to a very prosperous city socially and economically beyond most people's imagination today, a big innovation of great importance will be all the public schools offering high-quality nursery and daycare year-round, as well as high-quality extracurricular activities on all weekends, holidays, and the entire summer break. In the arts, such as painting, sculpture, music, theater, and film, sports, and vocational training, including fashion design, refined cuisine and restaurant management, interior decorating, landscaping, gardening, carpentry, auto mechanics, plumbing, electronics, electric and solar installations. There will also be a rescue animals companionship and adoption program. The way a society takes care of abandoned and abused animals, always perpetrated by unempathetic and mentally disturbed individuals, reflects its morality, empathy, and desire to take charge to make things right. Societies that do not make a major effort to take care of abandoned and abused animals have psychological problems and set a very bad example for their children. There will be annual, high-profile, citywide educational, sports, and arts competitions and significant prizes for the winners, celebrated in a major award ceremony led by the mayor and public school leaders annually. The public schools will offer high-quality, healthy meals based on the Mediterranean diet and schedule a mandatory daily exercise hour. No more obesity in New York City. New Yorkers will feel part of a wonderful, beautiful, free yet supportive, ultra-efficient, creative, highly educated community dedicated to beauty and general happiness, and be very proud of their city. That's the plan. Not socialism. Rather, enlightened capitalism, where every citizen becomes very well educated, with no more poverty, with productivity and incomes rising significantly as the years go by. Venture capital and corporations will flock to New York City due to a very well-educated citizenry which understands economics and is pro-business, rejecting class warfare. Amazon investments will no longer be stupidly turned down by demagogic left-wing politicians. Strong economic growth, combined with the elimination of crime and decreasing numbers of citizens on welfare, will allow income and sales tax rates to be sharply cut. Meanwhile, the estate tax would be abolished since it is unconstitutional, while the capital gains tax would be replaced by the normal sales tax, generating much higher tax revenues. Private sector employment and salaries in New York City will rise substantially. Poverty, unemployment, urban blight, alienation, crime, violence, dishonesty, abusive behavior, addiction, and psychological problems will be practically eliminated, thanks to our public schools becoming the best in the world with their enlightened curriculum. Regarding ICE's enforcement of our immigration laws, New York City must ensure that constitutional due process is always faithfully followed and that humane treatment is the rule. New York City will not tolerate law enforcement cruelty to anyone on its territory. We will not stoop to cruelty, a sign of mental derangement. And as mayor, I will insist that New York City is always a compassionate city, repudiating cruelty, abuse, and the violation of human rights and of our country's constitution. New York City must offer information and advice to illegal immigrants residing here, even on a confidential basis, and to anonymous inquirers, on how to legalize their status and avoid unpleasant, even tragically inhumane consequences. As mayor, I will ensure that we quickly devise a system whereby we relieve ICE of the burden and expense of operating in our city. While New York City will not be a sanctuary city, we will have a well-run, professional, illegal immigrant task force to locate illegals and offer those with a job, regularly paying their taxes and no criminal record, with assistance to legalize their status, or as a last resort to self-deport to their country of origin, always adhering to the requirements of due process. Constitutional due process applies to every single person present in our country, regardless of immigration status. Of crucial importance, New York City must push for reform of our country's absurd asylum law. All asylum requests should be made at U.S. consulates in the country of residence, or if that is not possible, in a nearby country, but not at our borders. This simple administrative reform would practically end our migrant crisis and eliminate illegal immigration overnight. New Yorkers must make the effort to seek out truly qualified candidates with effective, realistic platforms, not passively accept the mediocre platforms, not passively accept the mediocre candidates selected by the political parties. Who are truly qualified mayoral candidates? Only those who are experts in economics and in social policy, and reflect that expertise in an enlightened platform with detailed, concrete, practical, effective solutions for New York City's problems. Beware of candidates with vague platforms. Beware of superficial, demagogic candidates. Don't vote for failed socialism and perpetual poverty. Vote for enlightened capitalism, whereby all our youths become very well educated, thanks to every single one of our public schools becoming a truly great school with an enlightened curriculum, and where all our citizens benefit greatly from New York becoming more and more beautiful, along with constantly increasing economic and social prosperity. Look for the coming campaign messages with important details and videos on my websites, here on YouTube, on my LinkedIn and Medium pages, and my other websites. Remember, if you'll want to vote for my platform and candidacy, spread the word on social media and amongst your friends. And don't forget that I'm an independent, write-in candidate. I will not be listed on the ballot. You will have to write down my name in the special box for write-in candidates, probably located in the upper right-hand corner of the ballot. Thanks very much for listening, and I hope you will follow my campaign and my future messages online. And thanks again for your attention.